A racist nurse dismisses a black woman's agony as drug-seeking, a casual flick of her wrist consigning another soul to the margins. But that nurse, a woman carved from bitterness and a cheap nursing degree, has just made the biggest mistake of her career. This is the story of how one woman's arrogance, her deep-seated prejudice, led to her complete and total destruction. The air in the emergency room of St. Jude's General is a toxic soup. It smells of antiseptic, fear, and the faint, coppery tang of blood. It is a kingdom of controlled chaos, and its queen, tonight, is Carol Fletcher. Carol wears her title of charge nurse not as a responsibility, but as a weapon. Her scrubs are starched to the point of aggression, her orthopedic shoes squeak with self-importance on the polished linoleum, and her face is a permanent mask of weary disdain. She sees the endless parade of human misery that flows through her doors not as a collection of people needing help, but as a series of inconveniences designed specifically to ruin her shift. Her gaze sweeps the waiting area, a battlefield of coughs and groans, and lands on a new patient being wheeled into Bay 6. A black woman. Young, maybe late 20s. She is curled into a fetal position on the gurney, her face a mask of sweat and pain. She wears simple grey sweatpants and a faded university hoodie, the fabric soft and worn. To Carol, the outfit screams and unemployed. The woman's hair is pulled back in a messy bun, tendrils escaping to stick to her damp forehead. Carol's lip curls, an almost imperceptible movement, but it's there. She picks up the clipboard from the end of the gurney. Name, Imani Hayes. Age, 29. Chief complaint, abdominal pain. Carol clicks her tongue. Abdominal pain. The vaguest, most common, and in her experience, most frequently fabricated ailment in the ER playbook. It is the calling card of the addict, the malingerer, the attention seeker. She strides over to the bay, her presence sucking the air out of the small curtained space. Imani Hayes. Her voice is not a question. It is an accusation. The woman on the gurney flinches, her eyes cracking open. They are deep, intelligent eyes, now clouded with a fog of agony. Yes, Imani breathes, her voice a strained whisper. That's me. And what's the problem tonight, Imani? Carol asks, her tone dripping with a condescending sweetness that is far more insulting than outright hostility. She doesn't look at Imani's face, she studies the chart, as if the paper is more credible than the person. It's my stomach, Imani says, one hand clutching her abdomen. It's a tearing pain. Sharp. It goes straight through to my back. Carol makes a noncommittal humming sound. A tearing pain, you say? And how long has this been going on? About an hour. It came on suddenly. It's a 10 out of 10. I've never felt anything like it. A 10 out of 10, Carol repeats, her voice flat, devoid of empathy. She has heard 10 out of 10 1,000 times from people who walked in with a stubbed toe. It means nothing to her. Any history of drug use? Opiates? Heroin? Imani's eyes widen slightly, a flicker of disbelief cutting through the pain. What? No. I don't use drugs. Everyone says that, Carol says with a dismissive wave of her hand. Any alcohol tonight? No. I was on a flight home from a conference. The pain started right after I landed. A conference? Carol almost smirks. Sure. Okay, Imani, she says, her voice taking on the patronizing tone one uses with a difficult child. We're very busy tonight. A doctor will be around to see you when they can. In the meantime, try to relax. She turns to leave, the curtain swishing behind her. Imani calls out, her voice thin but urgent. Wait. I have a family history. It's important. Carol stops but doesn't turn around. She speaks to the curtain. What is it? My father, Imani gasps, fighting for breath. He died of an aortic dissection. He had Marfan syndrome. I might have it, too. The symptoms, they're the same. Carol finally turns, a look of profound irritation on her face. The nerve. This woman, this girl in her cheap sweats, trying to diagnose herself with a rare and catastrophic medical condition she probably read about on the internet. An aortic dissection, Carol says, and this time she does laugh. It's a short, sharp, ugly sound. Right. Honey, you are not having an aortic dissection. You're having gas. Or maybe you're looking for a script for Delorded. Which is it? The cruelty of the question hangs in the air, thick and suffocating. Imani just stares at her, the pain in her eyes now mixed with a dawning horror. She is not in a place of healing. She is in a place of judgment. And she has already been found guilty. Carol walks away, a smug sense of satisfaction warming her chest. She finds a young resident, Dr. Miller, a nervous man barely out of medical school with kind eyes and a spine made of jelly. Miller, she barks, shoving the clipboard at him. Bay 6. Abdominal pain. Obvious drug seeker. Give her a GI cocktail and get her out of here. I need the bed. Dr. Miller glances at the chart, his brow furrowing. Aortic dissection in the family history. Oh, please, Carol scoffs. She got that from a television show. Her pulse is strong, her pressure is stable. She's fine. Just another addict trying to play the system. Don't let her waste your time. He looks uncertain, glancing towards Bay 6. He is new. He is overwhelmed. And Carol Fletcher is terrifying. Okay, Carol, he says, his voice small. I'll check on her. He is the ineffective ally, the well-meaning soul trapped in a system run by monsters. He wants to do the right thing, but he lacks the courage to defy the Queen. 20 minutes pass. They are 20 minutes of pure hell for Imani Hayes. The tearing sensation intensifies, a relentless, ripping fire spreading through her chest and back. Cold sweat slicks her skin. Her vision begins to blur at the edges. She knows what is happening. Her own body is betraying her, its most vital vessel shredding apart from the inside out. And the person who is supposed to help her thinks she is a liar. Dr. Miller finally appears, his face pale and anxious. Miss Hayes? I'm Dr. Miller. He performs a cursory exam, his hands trembling slightly as he presses on her abdomen. Imani yelps in pain. It's not my stomach, she grits out. It's deeper. Can you check my pulses? In both arms? Please. It is a simple request. A basic diagnostic step for a suspected dissection. But before he can answer, the curtain is ripped back again. Carol stands there, her hands on her hips. Miller. Trauma 2, now. Motorcycle accident. A real patient needs you. She glares at Imani. Stop bothering the doctor. He has important work to do. Dr. Miller looks from Carol's furious face to Imani's desperate one. He hesitates for a fraction of a second. Then, he wilts. I'm sorry, he mutters to Imani, and scurries away. The isolation is now complete. Imani is alone, adrift in a sea of pain, with a shark circling her. She tries to control her breathing, to think. She is a scientist. She is a problem solver. But the problem is not her body, it is the woman in the squeaky shoes. The pain is a roaring wave now, cresting, threatening to pull her under. She feels a strange tingling in her left leg. A sign of malperfusion. A sign that a branch artery has been sheared off. A sign that she is running out of time. She fumbles for the call button, her fingers weak and clumsy. She presses it again and again. It is Carol who answers, her voice crackling with annoyance over the intercom. What is it now, Bay 6? I need help, Imani pants. I think I'm dying. A moment of silence. Then, Carol's voice, colder than a morgue slab. That's very dramatic. I'm charting you as disruptive. One more outburst and I'm calling security. The intercom clicks off. This is the peak of injustice. The moment of maximum humiliation and helplessness. To know with absolute certainty that your life is ending, and to be told it's just an act. Rage, cold and pure, cuts through the pain. It is a different kind of fire. Not the fire of a dying vessel, but the fire of a spirit that refuses to be extinguished by ignorance. This woman, this nurse, will not be the one who writes the end of her story. Carol Fletcher is on a power trip. The adrenaline of the motorcycle trauma, the deference of the young resident, the satisfying dismissal of the drug seeker in Bay 6, it all fuels her sense of righteous authority. She feels powerful. She feels in control. She stalks back to the nurse's station, ready to write a scathing note in Imani Hayes' chart. A note that will follow her, brand her as a difficult patient, a liar, an addict. But as she passes Bay 6, she hears a voice. It is not the weak, pleading voice from before. This voice is low, steady, and resonates with an authority that makes the hairs on Carol's arms stand up. You have committed gross negligence. Carol stops dead. She yanks the curtain back, ready to unleash a torrent of fury. Imani Hayes is sitting up. It is clearly costing her everything. Her face is ashen, her body is trembling, but her eyes are clear. They are blazing. Excuse me. Carol spits. You are in no position to. You have ignored a classic presentation for a type A aortic dissection in a patient with a known family history of connective tissue disease. Imani continues, her words precise, clipped, each one a perfectly aimed dart. You have refused to perform a basic bilateral blood pressure check. You have failed to act on a patient's report of paresthesia, a clear sign of limb ischemia. Carol is momentarily stunned by the clinical accuracy of the language. You listen to me, Carol snarls, recovering. You don't know what you're talking about. I've been a nurse for 20 years. And in 20 years, you've learned nothing. Imani cuts her off. You've just let your prejudices calcify. You looked at me, in my sweatpants, and you saw a stereotype. You didn't see a patient. You saw a problem to be dismissed. This is the line. The one that has been crossed. Carol's professional pride, the only thing she truly has, is being challenged. And by this person. That's it, Carol says, her voice shaking with rage. I'm calling security. We're having you removed. She turns, her hand reaching for the phone at the nurse's station. Before you do that, Imani says, her voice still dangerously calm. You should do two things. Carol pauses, her hand hovering over the phone. First, you will page Dr. Aries Thorne, the chief of cardiothoracic surgery. You will tell him it is a code aorta. Carol lets out a bark of laughter. Dr. Thorne? The Aries Thorne? He doesn't take pages from the ER for people like you. The phrase hangs in the air again. People like you. He will take this one, Imani says. And what's the second thing? Carol mocks, playing to an unseen audience of junior nurses who are now watching, wide-eyed. Second, Imani says, her hand moving slowly, deliberately, towards the worn purse on the bedside table. You will tell him his colleague is waiting for him. She pulls out a slim leather wallet. With fingers that barely tremble, she flips it open. She removes a plastic card and holds it up. The light of the ER bay glints off the holographic seal of the Johns Hopkins Hospital. There is a photograph of Imani Hayes. In it, she is not pale and sweating. She is smiling, confident, wearing a crisp white lab coat. And beneath the photo, the words are stark and undeniable. Dr. Imani Hayes, MD, PhD. Aortic Disease Center. Department of Cardiac Surgery. The world stops. The constant beeping and humming of the ER seems to fade into a dull roar. Carol Fletcher freezes. Her brain tries to process the information, but the pieces don't fit. The woman in the sweats. The drug seeker. The world-renowned expert in aortic disease. They are the same person. The blood drains from Carol's face, leaving behind a waxy, yellow pallor. Her smug confidence, the bedrock of her identity, shatters into a million pieces. She looks from the ID card to Imani's burning eyes. The power dynamic in the room does not shift. It inverts with the force of a tectonic plate. Carol is no longer the queen of her kingdom. She is a peasant who has just spat in the face of the true monarch. A junior nurse, a young woman named Sarah who Carol had belittled all shift, is the first to react. She sees the ID. She sees the truth. And she acts. She sprints from the nurse's station, grabbing a blood pressure cuff and a stat monitor. What's her pressure? Sarah asks, her voice crisp and professional, addressing Imani directly, bypassing the frozen statue that was once her boss. It will be different in each arm, Imani says, her voice growing weaker. The effort is costing her. Probably 160/90 in my right, and much lower in my left. Check my femoral pulses. The left one will be gone. Dr. Miller comes running back, drawn by the sudden, focused intensity. He sees the ID in Imani's hand. He sees Carol's face, a mask of pure terror. Understanding dawns, followed by a wave of shame so profound it makes him physically recoil. "Oh my God," he whispers. He snaps into action, his previous timidity burned away by a flood of adrenaline and horror. "Get me a gurney. Get me a crash cart. Page the CT scanner, stat. Tell them we have a suspected type A dissection coming down. Now. Move." The ER, which had been ignoring Bay 6, now converges on it. A swarm of nurses and techs descend, their movement swift and efficient. Carol Fletcher is shoved aside, an irrelevant obstacle in the path of a true medical emergency. She stands there, useless, her authority gone, her world collapsing in on her. I didn't know," she stammers to no one in particular. She didn't say who she was. Imani, as they lift her onto a new gurney, her body now bristling with wires and 4 lines, looks at Carol. Even through the haze of impending shock, her gaze is like a shard of ice. "You shouldn't have to know who I am to do your job," she says, her voice barely a whisper, but it cuts through the noise like a scalpel. "You just have to believe your patient. That's the job." Just then, the head of the emergency department, Dr. Evans, a man with a harried expression and a perpetually receding hairline, arrives. "What the hell is going on? I heard a code aorta paged from my department." His eyes land on the flurry of activity around the gurney. He sees the ashen face of his patient. Then he sees the ID, which the junior nurse, Sarah, is now holding. His blood runs cold. He recognizes the name. Dr. Imani Hayes had given a lecture at St. Jude's just last year. A brilliant, groundbreaking presentation on genetic markers for aortic aneurysm. He had been in the front row. He looks at Carol, who is now trying to shrink into the wall. His face, normally a placid mask of professional detachment, contorts into a rictus of pure, unadulterated fury. "You," he seethes, his voice low and dangerous. "What did you do?" Carol opens her mouth, but only a pathetic squeak comes out. The chart, she presented as a black woman, Dr. Evans finishes for her, his voice dripping with contempt. "And you wrote her off. Get out of my sight. Go to my office and wait for me. Do not speak to anyone." Carol's composure finally shatters completely. Her face crumples. Tears of self-pity, not remorse, begin to stream down her cheeks. "It's not my fault. How was I supposed to know?" "That's the point, Carol." Dr. Miller shouts, his voice cracking with a mixture of fear and newfound courage. "It doesn't matter who she is. We almost killed her because you couldn't see past your own bigotry." The accusation hangs in the air, undeniable. The entire ER staff has stopped. They all stare at Carol, their former tyrant, now exposed as a negligent, prejudiced fool. Her reign is over. Her kingdom has fallen. As the gurney is wheeled at a run towards the elevators, a new figure appears, moving against the current of panicked staff with an aura of absolute calm and authority. He is tall, with silver hair and eyes that have seen the inside of 1,000 human hearts. He wears blue surgical scrubs. He is Dr. Aries Thorne, a living legend. He lays a hand on the gurney, stopping its progress. He looks down at Imani, his professional mask cracking for a moment to reveal genuine concern and affection. "Imani," he says, his voice a low rumble. "Talk to me. What happened?" "Aries," she breathes, a flicker of relief in her eyes. "It's a classic tear. Proximal. I can feel it." He nods, his face grim. He glances at the monitor, absorbing the numbers in a split second. Then he looks up, his gaze sweeping over the ER staff until it lands on Dr. Evans. "How long was she here before you initiated the Code Aorta protocol?" he asks, his voice deceptively mild. Dr. Evans swallows hard. "Too long, Aries. Far too long." Dr. Thorne's eyes narrow. "Find out who was responsible. When I am finished saving my colleague's life, I am going to end that person's career." He turns his attention back to Imani. "We're going to take care of you, kid. Just hang on." He begins walking with the gurney, rattling off a complex series of orders for the operating room, his voice a calming anchor in the storm. The elevator doors ding open. They wheel Imani inside. Just before the doors close, Imani's eyes find Carol, who is still standing there, a ghost in her own department. And Imani gives her a look. It is not a look of anger, or hatred, or even pity. It is a look of finality. The look of a judge passing sentence. The doors slide shut, and she is gone. The aftermath in the ER is a wasteland of hushed whispers and averted eyes. The machine of the department continues to run, other patients need care, other traumas will arrive, but the energy has been irrevocably altered. The Queen is dead. Her throne is empty. Carol Fletcher sits in Dr. Evans's office, a small, sterile box filled with medical textbooks and UN-drunk cups of coffee. The chair is uncomfortable. The air is thick with the smell of her own failure. She cycles through a Rolodex of emotions. First, denial. This isn't happening. It's a misunderstanding. Then, anger. How dare that woman not identify herself? It was a trick. A setup. Then, finally, the cold, greasy tendrils of fear begin to wrap around her heart. She thinks of her mortgage. Her car payment. Her pension. Her entire life is built on the foundation of her nursing license, and she can feel that foundation cracking beneath her. The door opens. It is not Dr. Evans. It is a man in an impeccably tailored grey suit. He has the calm, predatory stillness of a shark. He is followed by another woman, also in a suit, carrying a briefcase. "Nurse Fletcher," the man says. His voice is smooth, polished, and utterly devoid of warmth. "My name is Mr. Harrison. I am the Chief Operating Officer of this hospital. This is Eleanor Vance, from our legal department." They do not sit. They stand, looming over her, a tribunal of two. "We have been briefed on the situation regarding Dr. Hayes," Mr. Harrison says. "We have reviewed the preliminary incident report from Dr. Evans. We have also pulled the audio from the Bay 6 intercom system." Carol's stomach plummets. The audio. One more outburst and I'm calling security. They have it all. Dr. Hayes is currently in surgery with Dr. Thorne, Mr. Harrison continues, his voice a monotone of doom. Her prognosis is guarded. Regardless of the outcome of that surgery, your employment at St. Jude's is terminated. Effective immediately. You can't do that. Carol shrieks, the sound high and pathetic. I have a union. I have rights. Eleanor Vance, the lawyer, speaks for the first time. Her voice is like chipping ice. Your union representative has been notified. They have already been briefed on the charge of gross, willful negligence, patient abandonment, and demonstrable racial bias. They have advised us they will not be contesting your termination. Betrayal. Even her union, the shield she has hidden behind for years, has abandoned her. This is unfair. Carol sobs. I made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. This was not a mistake, Nurse Fletcher, Mr. Harrison says, his eyes cold. A mistake is grabbing the wrong dose of a medication and correcting it. A mistake is a documentation error. What you did was a choice. You chose to believe your prejudice over your patient. You chose to be cruel instead of compassionate. You chose to listen to your ego instead of your training. He places a simple cardboard box on the desk in front of her. Security will escort you to your locker. You will clean it out. You will then be escorted off the property. You are not to contact any member of St. Jude's staff. If you set foot on this campus again, you will be arrested for trespassing. Is that clear? Carol can only nod, her body racked with sobs of pure self-pity. 2 uniformed security guards appear in the doorway, their faces impassive. The public humiliation is swift and brutal. They walk her through the center of the ER. Every head turns. Every nurse, every doctor, every tech, every clerk stops what they're doing to watch. They watch as Carol Fletcher, the woman who terrorized them, who belittled them, who made their lives a living hell, is marched out like a common criminal. Her face is splotchy and wet with tears. Her posture is stooped. The squeak of her shoes now sounds less like authority and more like the desperate flight of a cornered rat. She passes the junior nurse, Sarah, who looks at her not with triumph, but with a quiet, professional disappointment that is somehow worse. She passes Dr. Miller, who just shakes his head slowly, a look of profound sorrow on his face. Sorrow for the patient they almost lost, and for the colleague who was so consumed by hate. As she is pushed through the automatic doors and into the unforgiving night, the last thing Carol hears is the sound of the emergency room getting back to work. The kingdom has moved on. It has already forgotten her. The fallout is not a single event. It is a slow, methodical demolition. Dr. Imani Hayes survives the surgery. It is a marathon 8-hour procedure. Dr. Thorne and his team work with the focus of artisans, painstakingly reconstructing her shattered aorta with a synthetic graft. When she wakes in the cardiac ICU, the first person she sees is Aries Thorne, his face etched with exhaustion but his eyes smiling. "Welcome back, Doctor," he says softly. The hospital, facing a lawsuit that could not only bankrupt it but also shatter its reputation, goes into full damage control. They offer Imani a settlement that is staggering in its scope. It is not just a monetary sum, though that part is astronomical. They offer her a future. They offer to build and fund a brand new, state-of-the-art center for aortic health. A center dedicated to research, treatment, and patient advocacy. And they want to name it after her. The Dr. Imani Hayes Center for Aortic Health. She accepts. But she has conditions. First, a complete and total overhaul of the hospital's patient intake and triage protocols. Implicit bias training is no longer an optional online module, it is a mandatory, intensive, in-person course for every single employee, from janitors to chiefs of staff. Second, the creation of a patient advocacy board with real power to investigate and discipline staff for complaints of discrimination or negligence. Third, a full, independent audit of all negative patient outcomes in the ER going back 10 years, specifically looking for patterns of bias in the care provided by Carol Fletcher. The hospital agrees to everything. They have no choice. The consequences for the villains are swift and merciless. Carol Fletcher is, of course, the primary casualty. The State Board of Nursing, presented with a mountain of evidence including sworn testimony from half a dozen of her former colleagues and the damning audio recordings, permanently revokes her license. She is UN hireable. A pariah in the medical community. The lawsuit filed by Imani names her personally. The hospital's insurance covers the institution, but not the individual in cases of willful negligence. Carol is wiped out. Her house is sold. Her pension is seized. She is forced to declare bankruptcy, a broken woman living in a cramped apartment, haunted by the ghost of the career she murdered with her own prejudice. Dr. Evans, the ER chief, is demoted. He is stripped of his leadership position and forced to work as a regular attending physician under a new department head brought in specifically to clean up the toxic culture he allowed to fester. It is a public and deeply humiliating fall from grace. The rewards for the heroes are just as profound. Dr. Miller, the young resident, finds his courage. He becomes a fierce advocate for his patients. He is personally mentored by Dr. Thorne and Dr. Hayes. He switches his specialty from emergency medicine to cardiothoracic surgery, driven by a desire to never feel so helpless again. He becomes a brilliant and compassionate surgeon, a rising star. Sarah, the junior nurse who acted when her boss froze, is promoted to charge nurse. She leads with compassion and a fierce dedication to her patients. She is given the hospital's prestigious Nightingale Award for Excellence in Nursing, presented to her by Dr. Hayes herself at a hospital-wide ceremony. The systemic change is the most lasting victory. The audit of Carol Fletcher's past cases uncovers a horrifying pattern. They find at least 3 other deaths of minority patients in the last 5 years that are deemed highly suspicious patients who presented with classic symptoms of heart attack, stroke, and pulmonary embolism who were dismissed as drug seekers or hysterics and died in the waiting room or shortly after being discharged. The cases are reopened. The families, who had been stonewalled and dismissed for years, are finally given answers and a measure of justice. The hospital settles with them quietly but generously. The Hayes Protocol, a new, non-negotiable checklist for any patient presenting with symptoms that could indicate a high-risk vascular event, is implemented not just at St. Jude's, but is adopted by hospitals across the country. Imani's single, horrific experience becomes a catalyst for a change that saves countless lives. 2 years later, the auditorium in the new Dr. Imani Hayes Center for Aortic Health is packed. Sunlight streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the gleaming wood and brushed steel of the modern lecture hall. It is a place of hope, of innovation, of healing. At the podium stands Dr. Imani Hayes. She is not the terrified woman on the gurney. She is vibrant, confident, a leader in her field. She wears a sharp, stylish dress and moves with an energy that fills the entire room. A thin, silver scar peeking above her collar is the only visible reminder of that night. She is leading grand rounds, presenting a complex case study to a rapt audience of doctors, residents, and medical students. And so, as you can see, she says, her voice clear and resonant, the patient's self-reported history was the single most critical piece of diagnostic information. It was the key that unlocked the entire puzzle. We just had to be willing to listen. She gestures to a young man in the front row. Dr. Miller, you were on this case. Your thoughts? Dr. Miller, now a second-year surgical resident, stands. He is no longer the nervous, timid boy from the ER. He is poised, his questions sharp and insightful. He and Imani share a rapport built on the fire of shared trauma and the deep bond of mutual respect. He is her protégé. He is proof that good people can grow stronger in the face of ugliness. After the presentation, Imani walks through the halls of her center. Her portrait hangs on the wall, a testament to her survival and her triumph. She passes research labs where scientists are working on groundbreaking genetic therapies. She passes patient rooms where families are treated with a dignity and respect that is now the unshakable policy of the institution. This is the new reality. This is what was built from the ashes of one woman's arrogance. Prejudice is a disease of the soul. It can hide behind a uniform, a title, a badge of authority. It whispers that some people are worth less than others, that their pain is not real, that their lives do not matter. Carol Fletcher wore her authority like a shield, but it was not strong enough to protect her from the poison within herself. She judged a book by its cover and was destroyed when she was forced to read the pages. True justice is not merely about punishing the wicked. It is about healing the wounds they leave behind. It is about dismantling the broken systems that allow them to thrive. It is about building something new, something better, something that ensures the same darkness can never take root again. Dr. Imani Hayes survived. And in surviving, she did more than just save her own life. She built a legacy of light in a place that was once consumed by shadow. And that is a victory that can never be undone.